Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our council meeting. I'll call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock, 7:01. With the adoption of the agenda, is there any additions?
Through your worship, I would like to include a topic, Bill 20 discussion, please.
Under new business? Any others? All right, could I have someone move to adopt the agenda? Thank you. Councillor Librion? All in favor? Carried. There are not any minutes. Do you want to speak to that, CAO?
Through your worship, I apologize for not including the minutes from the last meeting. I haven't had a chance to work with Aya and finalize those minutes. I've been dealing with some competing priorities at the moment, and I will bring them at the next council meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll move on to the mayor's report. November 25th, I attended a CRAA meeting. A rail terminator operator called CanDo says it has acquired the terminal and enterprise that was founded and operated by the former Hay River Mayor, Brad Mapes. The enterprise terminal has become a significant cargo hub for the Northwest Territories, especially since CN has declined to repair a section of the track leading up there. They feel that this yard is strategically located in the northern terminal on CN's network, and it's a critical gateway to transport products to the mines and airports and everything north of Enterprise. Also, a USA company has launched a new railroad that's running through central Alberta, and this new railroad branches off from Canadian Pacific, Kansas City, just south of Lacombe, and runs for about 70 kilometers through Bentley and Rimbey into Ponoka County. And through operating rights agreements with CPKC, it links a lot of the small farming communities along the east of Highway 2, and it provides a direct interchange into Red Deer. And so there has been some talk about approaching CPKC and see what they can do for Northern Links. It's a company owned out of the States. Boreal Housing finally approved the proposed changes for the 35 lots that we have in Fort Vermilion. We agreed to sign a letter of understanding with Mackenzie County to cover interest costs. Boreal Housing is tasked with identifying within its current budget to acquire 4 additional lots in Fort Vermilion. And that pretty much does it for our flood mitigation. We have moved all of our houses, so next year it will be putting in fences and landscaping and driveways. On November 26th, I attended the Explore Edmonton, Northwest Territories. The town of High Level team did an outstanding job hosting the partners from Explore Edmonton, Northwest Territories Tourism, and Destination Canada. From the excellent dinner that we had, that you guys had, to the insightful presentation, everything was handled with such professionalism, and a huge shout out to Jack for the amazing meal that the Mirage provided. I can see you guys were very full when you left there. The Northern Core, for those of you that don't know, is an initiative from Destination Canada to connect all the communities to the north. And so this would be a corridor from Edmonton through High Level to Yellowknife. And it looks pretty interesting. December 2nd, I attended the Northwest SAR meeting. Our 3-year camera project is still in limbo because the cameras from the Rainbow Grid still have not been collected. Supposedly they will be by the 15th, so stay tuned. So some of our reporting's not been done because the information is not available. For those of you that would like, there's on our YouTube channel, YouTube Alberta Northwest Stars, there's a bunch of reels on what we have done over the years and the projects that we've been involved in and what Northwest SAR is all about. And they really are worth watching. And that's it. If there's any questions, I'll try to answer them. Seeing none, can I have someone accept my report?
I'll accept the
Thank
mayor's
you.
report.
Councillor Welke, all in favor? Carried.
Aye.
So under the committee reports, Deputy Mayor.
December 2nd, attended the same Northwest Species at Risk Committee as the mayor. And then on the 4th, had a Mackenzie Regional Waste Management Commission meeting. Welcome Councillor Libron to the board. Thank you. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Anderson.
November 28th, I attended the Transportation Society AGM. We did have enough members to actually elect a body to run the thing.
Good.
Are still looking for more members and more drivers. On December 4th, I also attended the Golden Range Society meeting, which was just kind of their standard, what they're gonna do for the year, how they're doing that type of stuff. So, and that's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jessamine.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. Councillor Lambert.
On November 26th, I also attended the Northern Sky Corridor dinner with Mayor McAteer and the CAO. It was a great presentation. Actually, sorry, the Director Clark was also there. But yeah, it was a great presentation. I thought it was a good conversation with the people that were there. Hope we can get more out of it and boost the tourism in the area. And then on November 28th, I had a Chamber of Commerce meeting. November 29th was Midnight Madness. It was a good turnout. A lot of stores said they were very busy. Since I've been involved with the Chamber, we had a record amount of prizes to give away. It was almost, or just over $8,000 in total giveaways. And I believe almost over $3,800 in grand prize giveaways. So it was a very good turnout for that, and very generous from the merchants in town. And then on November 30th, yeah, we just did the draws that day, and that's all I have to report.
So do you think the amount of people out there was up, seeing as Canada Post is still on strike?
I think it was definitely, I feel like it was a little busier last year, but it was also, we did 2 different weekends last year. We did Black Friday the weekend before and then Midnight Madness the weekend after. And this year we did it on the same day because it just, the way it all tied in together. But overall, I think like every store that I went to was fairly busy. We opened up a market downtown, and they said that they had a decent turnout there. And then there's also the market at the museum too. I haven't heard from Kayla yet to see if how the turnout was there, but from when I drove by, there was quite a few vehicles there. Yeah.
It was a lot colder this year.
It was pretty chilly outside, yeah. I know the next day we went to the Christmas open house, and it was pretty cold.
All right, thank you, Councillor Lambert. Councillor Librion.
On November 28th, I attended the High Level Library Board meeting.
On November 30th, I attended the Peace Library Systems Board meeting in Grand Prairie, where we elected our Executive Personnel Committee and Plan of Service Committee. And then December 4th was Mackenzie Regional Waste Management Commission. That was my first meeting, so hit the ground running. But I've got an appointment with Jennifer tomorrow to go down and take a tour of the facility and learn a little bit more about it. And then I just wanted to throw a shout out for the curling club for their turkey shoot on Sunday. I don't know how many of you made it down, but a good time. I didn't win a turkey, but I heard quite a few people did though, so that's great.
I heard it was good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Counselor Wilkie.
November 26th, I attended an FASD, Northwest FASD board meeting, and we're proud to announce that we finally got a grant to renovate the old Bare Necessities building.
Oh, nice.
So it was denied last year, and then this year we got it. So it's a matching grant, so we do have funds set aside to get what needs to be done in that building to allow for public use and programming and whatever. We haven't come up with a plan shy of just it being insured and able to be used, whether it be for internal use or for programming or that sort of thing. So we'll get started on that shortly. Otherwise, the only other thing I have to report is my second attempt for the Alberta Health's new advisory committee appointment is tomorrow. So I'm going to call ahead and make sure that they are present for that interview, because I don't want the ministry to feel that the town of High Level is not showing up for interviews. So anyways, that's tomorrow, so I'll have more on that next meeting. That's all I have to report.
Good. How much was your grant?
125,000. Yeah.
Nice. All right, could I have someone move to accept council reports, please? Deputy Mayor, all in favor? Carried. The CAO report.
Through your worship, as I mentioned earlier, I've been dealing with some competing priorities at the moment to make sure we meet our statutory obligations with municipal affairs and yeah. So that's, and then some HR matters that has been taking a lot of my time.
Thank you. 9.1, which is the, oops, sorry. Yeah, sure.
I'll move the CAO report for information.
All in favor? Carried. So the administrative requires inquiries, 9.1, town office hours.
Through your worship, I brought a report to council as per the Town of High Level Human Resources Policy, proposing a holiday schedule for 2024.
Is there questions? We're gonna advertise this, right? Yeah,
That's correct.
okay. Nothing? Somebody wanna move it then? Counselor Lambert? All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
So, the next is the capital budget.
Through your worship, I will turn it over to Michael Trabish.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You have two RFDs in front of you tonight that the administration is bringing forward for the 2025 operating and capital budgets. And the administration and the directors and CAO just want to add a little bit more context to the RFDs in terms of a PowerPoint presentation tonight, just to get council a little bit more information and just kind of talk to you a little bit more about where we see things going into January. So if I could ask Bill to bring up our PowerPoint for us, that would be great. It's wonderful when technology works well. I feel like we're back in COVID days again. All right. Thank you, Bill. So as I was saying, we just want to add more context to the budget process for 2025 and talk to you a little bit about where we're at. Bill, if you can advance that to the next slide, we'll just quickly share with council what we want to chat about tonight. So we want to just give you an update on the interim operating budget for 2025, the 2025 capital budget. I want to share some slides with you, council members and Madam Mayor, just to get you thinking about possible tax increases, if that is something that council is going to want to pass motions on once we get to the final budget. So we're going to show you some slides about the impacts both to an average residential property and to a industrial property as well. And then we'll just talk about the next steps and the dates coming up in January. So next slide, Bill. Thank you. So in your RFD package tonight, in your council package tonight, you're going to have an RFD to pass an interim operating budget for 2025. This budget is absolutely a carbon copy of 2024. There are no changes to this budget. This operating budget is a requirement of the MGA that will allow us to have authority to spend dollars to keep the municipality running on January the 1st. So the MGA requires council to pass an interim budget for the administration so that we can keep spending money when January 1st hits. So that'll be one of the RFDs in your package tonight. Next slide, please.
Do you want us to ask questions now or when we get to?
I'm flexible, council. Whatever you've done in the past, you can stop me now and I can answer your questions as we go.
So I'm just looking at this LGFF. Is that not to go up this year?
Local government fiscal
Yeah,
framework,
yeah.
on which page are you on?
Oh, I'm on the operating budget on page 24. We have it currently what it was last year. Is that the conditional grant?
LGFF for the allocation for 2025, I believe, is 900
Yeah.
and some thousand. Yes, it did go up a little bit. I don't have that exact number in front of me, Madam Mayor, but we can certainly provide it.
But so the one that you have there is that the conditional grant?
I don't have
Oh.
I don't have the detail of what
Oh.
makes up your 2024 budget, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry, we're just taking the way 2024 was prepared and passing an interim for 2025, and then we'll pass a final later on in the new year.
Just keeping it the same.
Okay.
Okay, so as I was saying,
Oh, Deputy Mayor?
So, I certainly understand that we need to pass an interim budget before the end of the year. I think this is the first time we've ever been asked to adopt the current years as the next. So I'm just wondering how far into the new year before we're gonna actually have a budget to sort of compare. And at that point, we can pass an updated interim budget, because passing the final budget isn't gonna happen until April, or even into May. And I just, depending on some of the programs that we have going on, I wouldn't want to restrict the various departments by hamstringing them to the 2024 budget when the 2025 budget may be looking at other priorities. So I'm hopeful that we're having a budget meeting in January, that we'll have a further interim updated budget to adopt, and that this isn't going to be the one that carries us until May, because that isn't going to work.
100%.
Oh, go ahead.
The administration 100% agrees, Councillor Langford. In fact, your final operating budget for 2025 could have been passed at any time this past fall. We could be passing it tonight, actually, but we don't have enough information to give you a final budget for 2025 from an operating perspective. The CAO has scheduled 2 workshop days, January 24th and 25th, I believe they are, where the administration is going to bring forward a slide that I have upcoming here in the next couple of slides that'll show you how we're going to lay out how to get to that final budget for 2025. In Alberta, there's a misconception about when you need to pass your final operating budget, and you can do that in the fall. The only thing you're waiting for in March and April is 2 requisitions. One is for the education requisition and one's for the lodging, and those do not impact your municipal operating budget. They only impact the tax notices. So the final municipal budget can be passed now, but we are going to try to pass it as soon as early late to mid to late January, from what I have learned since I have been here in the last 2 weeks.
Okay, but we can't pass the final budget until we set the mill rate, and we won't know that until we have the assessment.
Again, that's a misconception. The mill rate setting is simply just a mathematical calculation to raise the revenue that you need for 2025's budget.
Okay, but this council, most councils, aren't prepared to take the risk that you're gonna have sort of an undetermined increase to the mill rate, potentially raising the taxes, that once we know the final numbers, as we know, we can't deficit finance, we have to pass a balanced budget, so.
Correct.
Maybe last minute changes to the final budget to the rate certain.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of, that's why I like to do these PowerPoint presentations, because it really helps to explain how we get to an actual revenue requirement, and we actually know in advance, we can know in advance what the tax increase is going to be. The mill rates change just for the mill rate bylaw purposes to raise the revenue requirement that you need. And to help explain that a little bit better, Bill, why don't you just go?
Yeah, you just go through your slide presentation, we'll ask questions after.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So I just wanted to mention, we have a lot of work left to do on the operating budget to get council to pass a final operating budget for 2025. We still need to look at the transfers to and from reserves because our 2023 audit is outstanding. It's not finalized. So we don't know what our opening reserve balances are so that we can tell you how much funding you have available. We are still working on how much we can transfer to the capital budget. We're still working on what the debt requirements are. So there's a list there. It's not all encompassing, but we have a long list of things that still need to be completed. And the asset retirement obligation is a very large project which hasn't been started yet, which also impacts your 2025 budget. So once these things are in line and ready to bring forward to council, we definitely will in that 3rd week of January. And there's also a section in the MGA that says that you not only need your 1-year budget for 2025, but you need the 3-year plan as well. So that's the shopping list of tasks that the administration is working on. Next slide for me. So if you look at this particular slide, this kind of lays out how we could have determined the 2025 budget tonight had we had all the information in front of us. So you would typically start out by taking your 2024 budget, and most municipalities call this incremental budgeting. So you start with your 2024, you add or subtract in that first column for anything that's uncontrollable. These are cost drivers that are putting pressure on the municipality in terms of things like diesel costs or fuel costs, utility costs, things that the CAO and the administration can't control. Then the next column over is where we remove items from the budget in the prior year that aren't necessarily going to continue. You may have had a one-time $100,000 grant, for example, that needs to come out of the revenue. So we subtract that out. Then the third column is where we work with council to see what new service levels you want to fund more of or less of. And we usually call that a ranking of service levels. So in this example, I'm showing that council and the administration have decided that $47,000 of additional services are going to be needed for 2025. And then you get to your 25 budget, and in that bottom right-hand corner, it's showing that we are an unbalanced budget position, which is $147,000. So we need to raise our tax increase by 2.06%. And how did I get that number? If you go to the next slide for me. 1% of your total tax base right now in the bottom left of this slide is 71,200. So for every 1 percentage point that you raise property taxes, you'll generate an extra 71,000 for the municipality. And this table here simply lays out a typical residence in your community, which is assessed at approximately 317,000, and we got this from our assessor the other day. And in 2024, that property paid $3,458 in tax. So if council decides, well, we want to raise taxes by 3% to cover those service packages that we all decide on, that would be a $104 increase to that particular property. And then down on the bottom right-hand corner, I just show what the cost per day is for an increase of that. So if council passed a 3% tax increase, we could tell you today that the average property would see an increase of $104 or 28 cents per day. So I just wanted to share this with you now so that you know that this is what we're working towards when we get into those workshops in January. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a highway commercial property. So now we're looking at a non-residential property, and our assessor provided us with an $872,000 property. And again, you can see the difference in the tax from 2024 to 25 based on 3 different property tax increase scenarios. So in this case, it would range from an increase of $118 per year to $353 per year. And again, the cost per day in terms of, looks like 97 cents, almost the cost of a cup of coffee in this particular case if council was to pass a final budget with a 3% tax increase. And Councillor Langford, back to your question about the mill rate. So when we set the mill rate, all we're doing is we're taking the assessed value and adjusting that mill rate up or down to generate that extra 71,200 per 1%. That's just a math calculation at the end.
Oh, I understand all of that. My point was that sometimes this council may want to cut something to keep it at a 0 increase or
100%.
something else, so.
And those are the discussions that we'll be having, I believe, with the workshops that are scheduled.
That's not possible if we pass the final budget now.
We're not passing.
No.
We're passing an interim budget tonight.
But in your earlier comment, you had said we could pass the final budget now.
If we had all the information and council had a chance to look through the service levels that their administration was recommending for 2025, we could, absolutely. Next slide, please. So the 2025 capital budget, this is also an RFD in your council package tonight. This budget needs a lot of work still. We are looking currently at about a $2.8 million capital budget for 2025. We've identified funding for it in the form of reserves, $733,000, local government fiscal framework, that's the 900 and some thousand for 2025, plus what's left over from 2024 that didn't get allocated. Our next year's allocation of the Canada Community Building Fund, or CCBF, it used to be called federal gas tax. That allocation for next year is $269,000. And then there's another funding of $500,000. And again, we have more work to do on this one. We gotta confirm those reserve balances and look at our asset management plan and our capitalization policy to ensure that these projects are definitely ranked for funding in terms of importance for the community.
So when I was going through this, and I know that you don't know where all the reserves are, but in the fire, it's wanting to take 300,000 from fire reserve. When we had the last update, we only had 60,000 in there, so where did the other come from?
I'm under information from Director Schmidt that he has a new balance coming into a proposed reserve. And again, these are reserves that we'll be proposing to council once we get to those workshops. And I don't have the reserve table in front of me, but Director Schmidt, perhaps you can explain that extra new reserve you were planning to fund.
probably can't right off the top of my head right now because I don't have that number in front of me, but I think there is a proposed reserve transfer from year-end surplus again back into that fund. And there was surpluses last year that were moved in from wildfire revenues last year.
So I'm, like, how do we pass an interim when we don't even know what the reserves are? Like, if we say, okay, yeah, we'll go for this interim, and then all of a sudden everybody starts spending money, buying trucks and buying things.
Through your worship, I put a stop on all spending until we know where we're at.
Okay, so we're just passing this, we're not spending it.
Through your worship, that's correct, to meet our statutory obligation.
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
But again, this is gonna be an interim capital budget, right?
yes.
Because one of the comments in the materials that we'd been provided was that we didn't forecast any debentures for 2025, but that's gonna depend on the 100th Avenue project, whether we get the STIP funding, like, there's a bunch of stuff in this plan that isn't even there. Correct?
That is correct, Councillor Langford.
Do we need to potentially add that in there as sort of a placeholder or not?
For debenture borrowing as a source of funding,
Well, as a capital project, just so that people are aware, like, we're hoping to go ahead with, what is it, a $5.8 million project that we're looking to get significant funds from the province. I expect as we're past the deadline that application's gone into STIP, so.
So again, I'm coming into the process really, really late, but my understanding, Councillor Langford, is that the 100th Ave project was a 2024 approved budget for the 2024 budget at about 3 point some million, and then it was raised to 5 million and some. And the administration should put through a budget adjustment to the 2024 budget, including the debt that was identified in that most recent motion. And then if the other funding comes through, the other 50% STIP funding comes through, then we will apply to the Alberta Capital Finance Authority for the debt in 2025. But that project is a 24 project that'll show up in your capital plan as a carry forward project for 5 point some million. And those final details have not been prepared yet, which is the reason for the scheduling of the workshops in January. So back to CAO Toss's point, we simply are putting a budget before council tonight to meet our January 1st requirements so that we have met our MGA requirements. And then as CAO Toss said, the spending is pretty much, frozen state, if you will, until we finalize exactly what we have for funding in the final capital budget and plan. And my apologies for joining the conversation so late, but I'm trying to get up to speed as fast as we can.
Sorry, one other question. So the funding that's frozen is just new expenditures, not ongoing. So if we need to order diesel fuel, we can order, okay.
Through your worship, yes, absolutely.
Through your worship, yes, Councillor Langford, the spending for things like fuel is being approved in the operating budget tonight, and that operations budget is probably the one that's going to pay for the fuel, pay for the utilities, pay the staff, pay for the supplies, and keep the town running. But the capital budget are large ticket items that will be pretty much frozen, as CAO Toss had indicated.
Okay, but the interim budget would approve those for January. I'm talking about for the balance of the year.
That interim budget is for the entire 12 months, and the way the MGA is written is that as soon as the final budget passes, that interim one will cease. So it exists until you pass the final.
I understand that, but we're only on December the 9th, and this interim budget wouldn't start until January 1st. So I wanted to confirm that between today and December 31st, if the town needs to order something, there's something missing to reopen the pool, that we can, like, that's not all frozen, correct?
Through your worship, your worship, Madam Mayor McAteer, to Councillor Langford, the 2024 operating budget would have been passed sometime, I'm thinking in early 24 or late 2023. So that gave CAO Toss authorization to spend money to December 31st of this year.
Well, get all that. Just the comment was all spending had been frozen, so I wanted to clarify what that meant. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next slide, please. So, again, this is just to show where we're going. We're on a journey here, on a destination to get across the finish line. We need a lot of work to get our budgets into a 3-year operating and 5-year capital plan state. We are going to bring forward the balance of the information to help council make good decisions on January 24th and 25th. And with the last slide, I'll close my presentation, and I'm happy to field any additional questions that council may have. Thank you.
You did? And
Question. Just confirming the workshop dates. I see in here a January 11th and 12th, 2025. Is that a workshop weekend as well? No.
so the for sure dates so that council can make,
I've scheduled,
Arrangements?
yeah.
Through
work
your worship,
arrangements for
yes,
the 11th and
24th and
12th. Okay.
25th, yeah.
Okay.
especially for Jan Boyd, because they have jobs that they can't get out of very easily.
Sorry, what are the hours on the 24th then?
I'm expecting through your worship that will be an all-day session.
So that's a Friday. Okay.
Friday, Saturday. All right, is there any questions about the budgets that haven't been asked? So can I have a motion then
The interim.
for the interim operation, which one's 9.3? Operating 9.2.
I'll make a motion to adopt the interim operating budget for 2025 as presented.
Okay. All in favor? Counselor Welke, sorry. 9.3 is the interim operating budget, so we can keep the lights on.
Oh, did I just do the operating or the
You did
capital?
the capital.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Which is
well, that's-
fine.
I'm going by my agenda.
I'll change my wording to the capital for that one.
9.3 is the interim operating budget. Could I have a motion for that, please? Counselor Anderson?
I'll make that motion as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, moving on to the land use bylaw amendment. CAO?
Through your worship, I'll turn it over to Director of Planning and Development.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The proposed land use bylaw amendment, bylaw number 1048-24, is designed to apply land use classification to the land and property as outlined in Schedule E. These lands were recently brought under the town's jurisdiction through annexation, which was approved by the province earlier this year in June, officially bringing those lands into the town on July 1st. The amendments proposed add additional definitions, clarify Footner Lake and its riparian areas as environmentally sensitive areas, introduces the airport restriction area, introduces 2 new land use districts unique to the newly annexed land, the airport and the forestry services districts, and will replace the maps included within the current land use bylaw. A copy of the proposed land use bylaw was circulated to senior leadership, Mackenzie County, as well as the Northwest Regional Facilities Coordinator for Alberta Forestry, and no concerns have been heard thus far. For an amendment like this, usually there's quite a few people it gets circulated to, but the properties in the annex land are only owned by either the municipality or by the province. So it simplifies things quite a bit. But should council provide first reading, property owners in and around the subject land, including the county, will be notified of the proposed amendment along with information on how to provide feedback. The reason it's expanded to the properties adjacent to the town and the county is a Municipal Government Act requirement. It doesn't happen very often, but if it's on the border of a municipality, that's when it's required. And then information will also be made available on our website and in our newspaper 2 weeks prior to the public hearing. That concludes all of the comments that I have, but I would be happy to answer any questions that council has at this time.
Deputy Mayor?
I'll move the recommendation.
I just have one question.
Counselor Wilkie?
In the alternatives, the first alternative states the first reading as presented, but it appears that the presented version is the amended version. So I just want to be clear on the definition or the differences between alternatives 1 and 2.
So bylaw 1048-24 would be a new bylaw, and that bylaw would be amending the land use bylaw. So this bylaw, you would be able to pass as presented, which would then effectively amend the previous land use bylaw.
Okay.
If you would like to pass alternative number 2, that would be to change anything within the schedules.
To amend it almost like further, so to speak, than from what it is presented by.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much for the clarification.
Any other questions? So the deputy mayor moves first reading for the bylaw as presented and a public hearing for January 27th. All in favor? Carried. Under new business, Bill 20.
Through your worship, Bill 20 resulted in some significant changes to the Local Authorities Election Act. I'm not sure if council had any discussion on some of those changes, which it gives council the ability to request a criminal record check, a deposit for candidates running in the election, and I believe number of nominators. Some municipalities are adopting the requirement for criminal record check and some aren't, due to discrimination and stigmatization. So if council wishes to go this route, a bylaw needs to be adopted prior to the end of this year. And that's why I just found out today in BC, the election cycle is different. It's 2 years from now. So I just want to make sure that we can have a discussion and see what is the wish of council.
Council? What's your pleasure? That's electronic voting devices as well.
Through your worship, that's correct. So they banned electronic voting, and also municipalities are required to maintain a permanent voters list. I'm not sure what High Level is doing at the moment. I need to spend some time to find out.
Okay,
Do we have anything on this, or is this just all?
do we have anything
Do we
on-
have anything, are we looking at
No,
anything?
she's just bringing it up,
Okay.
the bill. We never got anything. The bill came out like a while ago.
Through your worship, it is my understanding that the province sent some information regarding this a while ago.
Yeah, I saw the information. But it never really affected us before. We never did electronic voting and nomination numbers, or we've always paid and prim checks, I don't know.
I was just gonna say that we already do the deposit on new candidates. 'Cause I remember having to do that, but yeah. I'd like us to get some literature on everything so we can read it before we do our discussion in its entirety.
It has to be in before the end of the, it should have been forwarded to you as a counselor.
Yeah, I feel sort of in the dark. I'd like to look at something, but
Yes.
Through your worship, a criminal record check doesn't automatically disqualify a candidate from running. Another issue with municipalities that chose not to go this route is that then we were put in a position of interpreting criminal record checks, and then I'm not sure if that's something that
Well, if
council
Donald
wishes.
Trump can run for president, I'm sure we can run.
Two different countries. Madam Mayor, so the only thing that, if I recall, that would change in this would be the criminal records check. I think in the past, we've always done all the other ones anyhow, as candidates. We've always had to be nominated, we've always had a deposit.
I think the number of nominators changed.
I don't know what that number would be, but
Through your worship, that will be up to council to decide.
100,
question.
yes.
So if we did permit or require criminal record checks and perhaps the result of that check doesn't necessarily disqualify someone, then what exactly do we do with that information?
Through your worship, I will have to look into it, but basically we just keep the information on file.
So some of the things that it contemplates are, allows union and corporate donations to local candidates, but limits individuals to $5,000 per municipality per year. You can have third-party advertisers, although they have to register and report their finances. The political party is going to be restricted to Edmonton and Calgary this time around, but in 2029, it may open up to the entire province. And permanent elected list, as the CAO has already indicated. Those are basically the big ones.
So it didn't really affect us. Do you get $5,000 donation to run?
I don't need $5,000 donation.
Somebody want to make a motion? It involves making a bylaw that has to be passed by the end of this month, 3 weeks. Logan, how long do you have?
Otherwise, everything stays as is?
I'll move the CAO report as information.
Thank you. All in favor?
Sure.
Carried. So the items for correspondence, you have the statistics, a letter from the village of Donnelly and from Spirit River. Does somebody want to move for information?
I'll move for information, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Anderson, all in favor? Carried. And then the outgoing correspondence, CAO Viv Doss has become our accountable executive. Could someone move that for information, please? Councillor Librion, all in favor? Carried. Did you pass your exam? Good for you. All right, so that ends our public portion of this meeting. Thank you all for attending. I will now entertain a motion to move in camera by somebody. Councillor Librion, all in favor? Carried. go to the bathroom?
I do.
Okay, go ahead. We'll take a